Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Get Corporate Ready. My name is Buhlali Bayile, and I know that you are here because you are looking to elevate in your corporate career, right? In this video, we'll be tackling an essential skill that is required of you as you come into the workspace. And what we're going to be talking about today is effective communication. Now, effective communication is something that is a no-brainer, right? Whether in your personal life or at work, effective communication is something that is a skill that one needs to have in their back pocket at all times. Now, this video will be focusing on how you can develop that in the workspace. So make sure that you're staying with me until the end of the video because I'll be giving you some effective strategies that you can start using now and when you're at university that are really going to help you develop. But let's get into what effective communication really is about. Now, what is effective communication? Well, effective communication in the workspace is really about how you communicate at work about work, right? So whether you're looking at an individual task that you're doing, whether it's a project status update that you're giving to a broader team, or whether you're giving and receiving feedback, how you communicate through all of these various facets at the workspace really is going to determine whether you are an effective communicator or not. And what this does in the workspace is that it really allows for effective collaboration across the teams, across different work streams, and that really helps you to avoid things such as miscommunication, misunderstanding, and unintentionally hurting people's feelings. So effective communication is something that helps you really just be seamless at work in terms of communicating around what it is you're doing at any given point in time. There are 5 ways in which communication can take place in the workspace. The first one is face-to-face, so that's when you are having a one-on-one conversation with someone. The second one is in writing, so that's via email, text, chats. The third one is virtually, over Teams, over Zoom, any sort of platform that you are using in the workspace. The fourth one is in a group or in a team setting, right? When you're having a team meeting, this is another way in which communication takes place. And lastly, it's known as non-verbal communication, and that is body language, right? How you communicate with your body, with your eyes, with your facial expressions. That is a form of communication. So you may ask yourself, what does good communication actually look like in the workplace? Well, when you're aiming to communicate effectively, one thing you should aim for is clarity, right? You need to be clear about what it is you're trying to say and the intention behind it. Secondly, you need to always be someone that is seeking to resolve problems or conflict than someone that is creating problems and conflict, right? So when you're about to say something, ask yourself, am I proposing a solution here or am I creating more conflict, right? And thirdly, you need to be the kind of person that's always aiming for two-way communication, right? So it's not about you having the last say, it's about you creating the type of environment that allows the next person to then also be able to have a say or be able to respond to what you're saying, right? So those are the 3 things you must always ask yourself before you communicate. What am I trying to say? Am I solving a problem? And am I allowing for the next person to be able to communicate back? So always think about that before you communicate something and ensure that you're able to tick each of those boxes before you communicate. Now, in the next segment, I'll be giving you 7 tips for effective communication. Now, the first tip I have is try and speak face-to-face as much as you can, right? Speaking face-to-face really allows for you to be able to hear the tone of the person, see their facial expressions, and that way it avoids that level of miscommunication, misunderstanding of tones in emails or any other forms of communication. So where you can, try and speak face-to-face as much as you can, because that really also just goes to fostering a relationship with the person that you're speaking to, because you're really able to then see and feel the intention of what it is they are communicating. Secondly, always be mindful of your body language and tone, right? So when you are having your face-to-face conversation, make sure that how you speak also communicates the intention behind what you are saying. Now, if you're the kind of person that loves to go into meetings and speak like this, right? Or you just sit there, someone's speaking to you and this is what you do, or you spend your time doing this every 2 seconds, guys, what that communicates is that that person is wasting your time, What it communicates is that you're really not interested in what they have to say. So make sure that you are always aware of what your body language is when you are speaking to someone. And also be mindful of your tone, right? When you are trying to communicate something and maybe you're giving someone some constructive feedback, make sure that you are not raising your voice. Make sure that you're not speaking over them, right? Because what that communicates is that you are aggravated. It means you're upset, right? And that may not be what you're trying to communicate. And what that ends up doing is that people then get lost in trying to interpret why you're saying what you're saying, as opposed to actually listening to what it is you are actually saying. So your body language and the tone of your voice, make sure that you always regulate that when you're speaking to someone in a face-to-face conversation. Thirdly, always prioritize two-way communication. What I mean by this is that you also need to develop your listening skills, right? Communicating effectively is not just about making sure that you're articulating what it is you want to say, but it's also about allowing the other person to be able to respond. So as you listen to the next person, listen with the intention to understand what it is they're saying, not with the intention to respond. So it's very easy for you to listen to someone, but in your mind, you're actually just waiting for them to finish so that you can get back to the points that you want to make. But when you're actually prioritizing two-way communication, it means that you are listening to the person to understand their point of view, to understand where they come from, right? And by doing that, you're facilitating a very collaborative environment, which takes me nicely into my fourth point, which is to build on your collaboration skills, right? Always know how and when to disagree and whether it's necessary or not, right? Communication is not just about, like I said earlier, having the last say, making sure that you are heard over the next person. Facilitating two-way communication means that it's important to understand that you're trying to always collaborate with the people that you are working with, right? You guys are always working towards a particular outcome. And so the idea is to really, how can we facilitate the type of communication that allows us to collaborate well, right? The collaboration skills really just speaks about knowing how and when to disagree, but also knowing also how to work through the differences that you guys may have. My fifth point is always stick to facts and not stories, right? A lot of times we create stories from facts that we hear, and sometimes we make assumptions of why people have said certain things that they've said. Now, instead of making assumptions, make sure that you take the opportunity to ask the person what they meant by what they said, right? If something didn't sit well with you, don't make an assumption of ill intent from the next person. Find out why they did it in the way that they did. So as we communicate, let's always ensure that we're sticking to the fact. What is it that is actually being communicated, and spend less time assuming and creating stories around the intent behind the fact. The sixth tip that I have, always know when to communicate what. When is it appropriate for you to have a text message in communication? When is it appropriate for you to just pick up the phone and actually have a phone call? When does it actually matter that you're having a face-to-face as opposed to doing it in writing, right? Understanding what type of communication fits what mode of communication is as critical as the way in which you communicate, right? So being able to understand when it's something that is urgent, what is the mode of communication that makes sense right now? When it's something that is just a status update, does it make sense to pick up the phone and call someone, or can I just write it in an email and they'll read it when they have time, right? So always understanding when to communicate what is a very effective way of communicating. So the last tip I have is always talk to the right person, right? Ensure that when you're sharing information, you're sharing it with the relevant individual. The worst thing that can happen is that you're sharing information about someone or about a task to the incorrect person. What that could do is that it could inevitably delay you actually making progress on the work that you're doing because you've just spoken to the wrong level of person. And also it could risk you looking like you're gossiping or complaining about certain people, which could delay you actually getting the work done that you're supposed to be getting done. And also just paints a negative perception about you as an individual. So guys, these are the 7 tips that I had for you in terms of how to foster effective communication within the workplace. Let me know in the comments below which of these 7 strategies really spoke to you, right? Which of these tips are something that you're going to be able to immediately start implementing within the workplace, and let me know how that works out for you. Now, for those of you that are still in university, one way that you can start honing in on this particular skill of effective communication is ensuring that you don't gravitate to just working on your own all the time, right? A lot of people like to be independent workers, but unfortunately, when you come into the workspace, you don't necessarily always get the luxury to just work on your own or just do your own thing. You're inevitably always going to be put into teams. You'll have people you're reporting into. After 2-3 years, you'll have people that are reporting under you. So make sure that when you are given opportunities to do group assignments at university, make sure that you're making use of that opportunity, right? Make sure that you are working in teams, because what this is going to do is going to really help you foster the idea of effective collaboration. It's going to help you practice how to communicate effectively to someone that maybe is just not pulling their weight in the team, or really just being able to collaborate and listen to different people's ideas. It helps you develop that two-way communication, right? Not just always having your say, but also making sure that you listen to people. And in that, don't always gravitate to your friends. It's very easy to be able to collaborate with your friends because you understand each other and there's that common trust and understanding amongst you. So make sure that when you are given opportunities to do group assignments at university, find different people that you could be working with, right? People that you don't immediately click with, because how you develop effective communication is going to stem from some of the more difficult conversations that need to be had. And that's how you start developing it. When you come in the workplace, your friends are not there. You are placed in a team with people you know absolutely nothing about. So this is the one way in which I would encourage you as university students to start doing more of and not to shy away from, because it's really just going to help you prepare for the world of corporate.